Hello, friends, and welcome to Cinephile Saturdays. It's episode one, and to kick it off with my friend and author Joseph R. Carroll or J.R. Carroll. Joseph, how you doing today?
Magnificent, man. I love being with a fellow death dealer.
Yeah, yeah. I know we've been talking about doing this for a while, about talking about the Underworld franchise, and it was just overdue. So, and this franchise has a lot of influence on you and your writing too, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it is yeah. I'm glad that I get to be the first one on Cinephile Saturdays. That's awesome. I appreciate it. And I mean I know you did this on purpose that we waited until 2023 so it could be the 20th anniversary of
Oh,
Underworld.
I did. Yeah, that was on purpose. Yeah. How'd you know? Yeah.
100%, 100%.
It was all a big plan. Yeah, it all planned out. Yeah.
Yeah, like now like I started like doing my writing in high school like right after this movie came out. Um and then as I'm like thinking about, years later and when I actually started writing my book series, that was one of the things that was always in the back of my head is like the way I thought about
Hmm.
Underworld and stuff. And like their society a little bit. But it was funny though, as we started watching these movies again, that I actually not a lot of it is similar. I guess it was just kind of the feelings that it gave me, because my vampires and werewolves are completely different
Yeah.
than the way these are set up. Um, but I was worried. I was worried coming in because the last time me and you did a movie,
Yeah.
it was horrible. I
It was
mean,
it was fun though. It was fun to talk about. It was fun to
yeah,
talk about it. So yeah.
yeah, and I was just remember I was like, Hellraiser just I was kind of had me. The book was great, the
Yeah.
Hell on Heart was great,
Yeah.
but the movie just once I came back to when we came back to watch it, it was just not so great. But you know what, man, I am still what do the kids call it now? A stan.
A
I am
stand.
still I am a stan for Underworld. I'm still there for it. It holds up to me at least.
I thought it held up okay. There was a few things in it that were like early 2000s kind of, but it's you can't help it. There's going to be some of that. I mean, it's like you can't avoid it. Some of the stuff is in the time and not all of it will hold up. So, but for the most part I thought they held up.
Yeah. Well, and the thing I was super surprised about, and I think what little I know about special effects, I think their special effects actually hold up pretty well,
Mhm.
even 20 years later. But I think it's specifically because of the atmosphere of this movie, because it's about vampires, right? And these vampires are can't go out in sunlight, so it's always dark.
Mhm.
And from what I know, is like it's easier to do CGI in a dark setting that you lets you get away with more stuff. And I was just like, I was really impressed. I was like, these graphics are 20 years old and not bad for a movie that they spent like $20 million on.
Yeah, not bad at all. I think some of it, and I'm sure we'll get to it, but in Rise of the Lycans, that you could tell that budget was a little less because you
Yeah,
could tell some of it was a
yeah,
little
especially
iffy.
on the big open
Yeah,
scenes. Yeah, where they're running across the open field. You're like, yeah, you guys didn't spend as much money on this one. Yeah.
yeah. I think the budget kind of dipped a little bit, but no, overall, I thought it did okay. I thought it was all right.
Well,
And
yeah, and one thing, I mean, nobody, what, like, this isn't obviously, this is not an Oscar movie. Hey, Andrew, what's up?
Andrew, Chris,
Uh, this is not an Oscar-winning movie or anything. But one thing this movie has better than any movie in history is the superhero landing at the beginning.
yes,
That's still number one.
yes,
Still, no,
yes. And rewatching these, I'm a little bit surprised because when we talk about female heroes and badass females in cinema, we talk about Ripley.
yeah,
A few other I mean, Ripley was, I
the
mean, Ripley,
OG.
right? She's OG. She's, complete badass, but Celine doesn't get enough credit. I think that character really,
Yeah,
I think, changed a lot in Hollywood and in action movies. I thought just the character and like the aesthetic and everything really worked. And that character, I think, changed the way we see these kind of movies in a way.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't know if it was last year or what, but I remember, oh, what is her name? Jennifer Lawrence
Mhm.
was doing an interview, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I was the first female like super like hero and stuff." And coming back to watching these, I'm like, yeah, that's right. You weren't, not even close. I'm just
No.
like, and I'm yeah, and like you said, like people kind of aren't thinking of about Kate Beckinsale playing
Mhm.
Selene, like, and my friend Nathan, we were kind of, I was like telling him I was going to be on your channel and we were going to talk about this, and he was like, yeah, she's on the top of my list of like female badasses, like, and it is, you can tell it's very early 2000s. Everyone's in leather and trench coating it up and everything, but that was cool. That was the thing back, the Matrix and all that. Everybody
Mhm.
was dressing like that if you're fighting and doing martial arts and stuff like that.
That's true. I didn't think about it. It is in that time of like the Matrix, and there was that too. I think it kind of fits the whole atmosphere and aesthetic of the movie. It feels really like dingy and like it's always
Raining all the time.
overcast. Yeah, so it does fit the style that they were going for. The first movie I thought, when I first saw it, the end just I didn't see that coming at the end, the
Yeah,
twist at the end.
yeah, yeah. And I really, and this is another thing. I mean, maybe you will know more about this because you're a lot more into horror and you were bigger into comic books
Mhm.
when you were younger than I was. Um, was there always, or was it as big of the vampire versus werewolf before this came out, or did this
Mm,
really make it explode? Because
I
now it's
think
like it's common, it's in the pop culture that it's always werewolves versus aliens, or werewolves versus vampires. But like, was that as big before this movie?
that's a great question. I think there's been a couple. I don't know that
I'm
it's on
sure there
this
was a
scale
old,
though,
old
like a
school.
focus.
Yeah, I'm sure it was one of those old Universal Studios probably had the vampire versus Dracula versus the Wolfman or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've been thinking about that all day. I'm like,
Hmm.
was this the movie that really made that the thing to do?
Yeah, I wonder how much of that. I think there was a little bit of it, but I'm not sure how much. Great question. Yeah, we'll have to. If someone in the chat knows, let us know. Hey, Aaron, thanks for
Hey.
coming by. And but yeah, I think this first movie was different than most other vampire, because I think when we think back then, when we thought vampire movies, we thought like Interview the Vampire, kind of
Yeah.
the older aesthetic. This is more of a modern take on it, and there were other modern vampire movies, but this built a whole society. Like you said, it has like a whole infrastructure, like the secret societies and the war between vampires and werewolves that was happening and nobody really knew about it. So all that it built, I thought was really neat. And the first one's really ground level. It feels really street level.
Yeah, yeah. It's not like too over the top. They don't Yeah, you're not it doesn't feel like they're bringing in the outside world. It's very contained,
Mhm.
it's just these two groups. Yeah. And like you were saying with the history that they've built, I really like that. And I thought that was even now, I think that's still a really cool concept that doesn't get as much love in vampire movies or stories, but like, and it's cool. They give you dates too, so you can like really, you're like, okay, this is when vampires began. Like it was what 400 A.D. is, I think that when they said that the first, Alexander Corvinus or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. But I did like and then the whole, where they had the system of them jumping through time. They would slumber for a while. How
that
cool
is
is that?
that
Right?
is that is and that's a genius way. And like whoever wrote this really had to think about it because, okay, you say you have the three oldest vampires and they're awake together. Well, of course they're going to butt heads, right? So it's like two of us sleep, one of you gets to run the show, no one questions you, you're the main person, and then we wake up. And I thought it was cool with the blood transfers the memories and stuff.
Yes.
So it's like, so I'm getting ready to go to sleep. I give you all the memories I've collected for the, because it was 100 years at a pop, I think is what
Mhm.
they were doing. Yeah, that was a really cool concept.
Yeah, it was really neat. I love that, and I love that we see the werewolves first. Lucian and his crew living in the sewers, and they're kind of like they're hidden, and they look like this ragtag group of kind of renegades, like they're like gangsters almost that are hiding and waiting for the right time to strike. And little do we know what really happened. We don't really have the whole context yet, of course. But another thing that I loved is the UV rounds that they have that the werewolves have. That was
Super
neat too.
cool, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I was, and that's another thing. It's like you don't really like very inventiveness. I am a big proponent of like the kind of like from the Dark Knight where you had Morgan Freeman's character where he's like, whenever Batman needed something, he just went down there and he was like, well, this might work. I love that, like having your own like armory person that can
Mm.
make stuff up and or I guess if it was really old, it'd be like the blacksmith that can make you something special. I really like that. And the UV rounds, and then how they reverse engineered that to
Yeah.
make the silver nitrate rounds. I'm like, that is ingenious, and that's a cool way to make a weapon.
Yeah, definitely. And Chris can't think of anything before this off the top of my head. The vampire. Yeah, I think like there was monster movies that had both archetypes, but I can't think of one that really made them enemies on this level, or kind of like a Godzilla versus King Kong kind of thing.
Yeah,
I can't remember anything, but
yeah,
maybe
it
like you
might
said,
have.
like the older movies.
Yeah, it might have just been like, oh, a vampire met a werewolf and they fought because they were in proximity. But like, yeah, I feel like this might have been the one that was like, they are mortal enemies and, you know, they're going to go to war.
Yeah. And you had mentioned before we went live about the cast, and the cast really surprised me too, because this
Yeah,
movie,
right.
when it was released, I don't think really anyone expected a whole lot from it. But
No.
the cast, I mean, pretty star-studded cast.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the guy who is like the producer of all those movies is Les Wiseman,
Mhm.
and that guy, man, he must have like things because he caught all these people because I was doing my research when I figured out that all these names were in there. I'm like, did they do anything before this? And like he pretty much caught Kate Beckinsale on the way up. He caught Scott Speedman on the way up. Sheen, I don't think he really did much before this movie either. So he got like three people who went on to do a lot of things after this. And then of course, the guy who played Victor was an amazing actor. I think he came from like Broadway or something like that before he came in here.
Oh,
But
wow. And StreamYard's been really weird lately, but let me get back to these comments. This was the period when CGI was really finding its feet. Lord of the Rings, Matrix, etc. Yeah, kind of it's everybody kind of went up a level around that time.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And I was thinking what Aaron said about like Blade was 98.
Yeah,
Yeah, but again, I don't even know if there was werewolves in Blade at all.
I can't think of any. I think it was all vampires, right? I think
Yeah,
the second one expanded the lore a little bit, but they were still vampires, just a different type.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Blade was 1988, but that was more vampires versus humans. Yeah, I can't think of any. Chris, I've even had to Google, and everything head to head seems to be the first Underworld.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too. It's like you look at like in the future movies, we were talking about, he got the head of the Targaryens to be in
Yeah.
these movies, the younger brother from Prison Break, and I don't know if it was the third, it was the Lycan movie, but one of the guys ends up being a big actor in American Horror Story. He's been in like 3 or 4 seasons of American Horror Story. So, I mean, this guy just knows how, either he knows how to pick them or he's just, but he also did, he directed Live Free or Die Hard. And
Hmm.
I think he's directing the spinoff of John Wick.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah. So, I mean, they got a good director, and these aren't blockbusters, so he must just really like vampires and the lore. I mean, with all these connections he has, I'm sure he could find bigger budget movies if he really wanted to.
Hmm.
But
He does have a certain aesthetic too. There's a certain style, like this dark,
yeah.
gloomy, very, that kind of style fits him really well. They started really playing with the possibility of CGI about now for sure. Creating believable fantasy worlds was usually ropey. Love the history of the vampires and of werewolves in this. I've seen it copied a lot of times since. It was a different type of vampire movie. I think it opened a lot of doors for people. And I think at the time, Kate Beckinsale was married to Michael Sheen, and then they ended up separating, and she married
The
Jess
director.
Wiseman for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they were
So
married they got married in '04, I think, right after the first movie. I'm like, well, I guess,
I wonder
get
what
you
that
into
was like on set. Yeah. That was been an awkward filming session there if
well,
with all the personal stuff going on.
yeah, I mean, like I just love, like, again, the beginning of the movie was like really fast paced, and it got you right into it. It didn't, like, she kind of had that little dialogue at the beginning about how the war is coming to an end, and and everything, which should have told you that it's not coming to an end.
Right.
When they come out and try to say it like that. But like right after that dialogue, I mean, it goes right into the subway, the chase scene, the
Mhm.
subway scene, and and you get to see, and I think I want to say these are more of your traditional looking werewolves or wolfman kind of, because a lot of stuff since has kind of went back to, like, like Twilight, where they're just big wolves, and that seemed to have been kind of more, because I've seen multiple people do that too, and I don't know, maybe that's just because Twilight did that.
Mm.
But these are the werewolves that, like, I envision in my series. That's kind of what they look like.
Yeah.
You know?
A little bit more intimidating. They can stand up and they're like humans, and instead of just like a big wolf, like kind of,
Yeah,
yeah, it
yeah,
doesn't have the
yeah,
cool factor. Yeah.
yeah.
Just not quite the same.
Makes it creepier too, because humanoid things that aren't human are always creepier, than just an animal.
Yeah. One thing that a lot of movies in this time period, I think, if they could go back, they may change is there's a few scenes where they made it for 3D, for like 3D theaters, and they had a few scenes set up to where things look like they're traveling at you. There was a couple of
Yeah,
scenes that were like,
I wondered if this movie was made for 3D or not, because I know for a fact, the maybe Evolution, or maybe it was
yeah,
or one of those movies definitely was. I remember seeing the trailer and this 3D, but I don't know if that, but yeah, because there was times where she was like throwing those like silver like ninja star like things,
yeah,
and like they came right at the screen, and you're like, yeah, I wonder if that was supposed. I mean, I'm not a big fan of 3D movies in general, because I feel like it pulled, like, having the thing on your face, and
yeah,
stuff popping out, kind of, I just want to like sit and just zone into the screen and just kind of disappear into the story.
yeah. It's
Whereas,
too much of a gimmick, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Aaron's black, blue, and whites for Les Wiseman, and Lycan over werewolf, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what was what was your favorite part of the first movie? Like, what did you find to be the most intriguing thing?
I think on the I think well, the end is when I first saw it, the end is what stuck with me. But on rewatches, I think the Lucian scenes at the beginning where he's trying to find Michael and he's chasing the car, that whole
Oh
sequence
yeah,
is really cool. Because it looks like he's running really slow. I wish they would have sped him up a little bit. But when they have the side view and the car is going and he's running, he's catching up to the car, that was really neat. Jumping on the car and the way that she shoots him and the bullets pop out of his skin, and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
really cool.
Where like you feel like he's like flexing and he's like forcing them out of, like, one pops out of his head, one, and then they start popping out of his wrist and stuff. And I'm like that's pretty sweet. I liked, like, again, like the story and the concept of things, like, and that's, as I've gotten older and I've got into more fantasy, like, concept things really, like, if the author is an average writer and everything is like average to good, but the concepts that they're putting out are cool and different, it makes me really like, especially in sci-fi. I've
Mhm.
become more of like a concept type person, and like the little when they're dosing them to keep them from transforming,
Yeah.
and uh like when she talks about like them interrogating the werewolves and how they keep the werewolves from like transforming back into people. So I think like the medical stuff and the scientific stuff is just
Hmm.
really cool.
A lot of details. Now that we're talking about it, there are a lot of details in the first one. A lot of world building that goes into it. That like the different bloodlines, and they're looking for the specific person. They're trying to find the right descendant. What did you think of the whole hybrid thing, the bloodlines? Were you into that?
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. um there is one, like, now I don't know, they kind of still kind of left that out as a myth. Like maybe it's a myth, maybe it's real. The whole like once one son got bit by a wolf, one son got bit by a vampire bat or whatever, and that's how they changed. I don't think they ever specifically said that that is actually what happened, but I think that was the coolest part was where they said he was just a normal guy back in 400 AD or whatever, and the plague came through, and he survived the plague. Like it didn't affect him, but it changed his DNA and stuff. I was like, that's freaking sweet. I mean, that's an awesome idea. But there is one flaw, and they it becomes a storyline, because if you're going to go with that, it's got the whole werewolves bite you, turn you almost instantly,
Mhm.
and other like fantasy books have kind of talked about this. Like you can't really do that, because then they're just everywhere,
Yeah.
and they kind of do address that once. They're like, yeah, anytime that, I think his name was William, right? Anytime William would go out, he would just rampage and turn a whole village, and then they had to go out and like kind of exterminate them. Um,
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty. I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know if it's in the first movie where and I think they do show like Marcus, who's like the original. He's the original, but he was always kind of um like bowing, not bowing, but like kowtowing to
Yeah.
Victor. He's like, "Oh yes, Lord, because I think what was this? The secret was like, oh, Marcus said, if I die or if William dies, we all die because the blood, something with the bloodline. So they were always like, well, I can't have you killed, but Victor's the actual boss.
Yeah.
I thought that was, and I think you kind of learn in I want to say it's evolution,
Mhm.
you learn why he's the because he's like he turns out to be like he was a king or something.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
he convinced, like on his deathbed, he convinced him to turn, and yeah.
yeah, and he used his army or whatever to help keep William in check. I think that was the deal or whatever. So I was like, okay, and I mean, they really right at the end of this movie, they were, it wasn't. I don't think that they expected it to be super like blockbuster, but they were expecting to make a sequel, because the way it ended, they just rolled right into like darkness is still looming, the story's not over, and I'm like, I was like, well, you guys had some confidence.
Yeah, I think part of it is I think you wanna end a movie that way, so if there are fans, then they'll campaign, or they'll push for one. Aaron commented, "I always wonder about anything set at night. I assume these days it's filmed in the day on location studios and then fixed in post." I'm not sure about this one, but I know movies like 30 Days of Night, they shot that all at night.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good movie.
yeah, but I'm not sure about this one though. I think this one they probably could have. There's a lot of indoor scenes,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I'm guessing they probably color graded after, but I'm not sure exactly. Taylor, I only watched the first
Yeah.
two in the series, but my memory is that the fun eye candy for me. I mean, Kate Beckinsale. I
Uh,
felt it to me like they they knew what it was and they owned it. That's exactly right.
hey,
Yeah, I mean,
hey,
yeah.
you, you Scott Speedman was shirtless for half this movie. Okay, it wasn't just for us.
Yeah, I think, but yeah, I mean, yeah, they do own it, and I think there is a little bit of a wink and a nod there with, we know what we're doing kind of thing.
Yeah, well, and I was talking to my wife, and I was like, in the first movie, there's like one scene, maybe two scenes, where it almost goes into like a CW feeling for me when they were the first time she goes into the mansion and they're having the little party, and then just the way that the blonde vampire comes up and starts talking to her. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
I'm like, this is very like CW Vampire Diaries esque, but that was only like one or two scenes in the whole movie, so it didn't throw me out of it.
There are some pretty bad there are some pretty bad overacting. And there's a couple of, it's not too much. I mean, there's enough that you notice, but it wasn't like
Yeah,
prevalent, but there were a couple that were like, oof.
yeah. The well, again, the scene where she brought him back to the place, and the girl's like, "Ooh, you brought a pet?"
Yeah.
And then of course she scares him, and he jumps out the window. And I think that was more of like the plot demanded him to leave. So, but yeah, they could have probably done it a little less goofy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Uh, the end for the first one, did it surprise you the first time you watched it?
Um, where she kills Victor.
Yeah, she finds out about what really happened with the werewolves
Yeah,
and where they start, or
that
lichens.
that was good. Like
Mm.
when he kind of reveals that. Well, I think it was oh my gosh, the scribe or whatever, the historian, kind of reveals that, and I was like, oh, okay, now we know what's going on here. And like the older vampires, like Craven and Victor, they're like they're supposed to be like over 1,000 years old, super powerful, but they really play the like we're so far above them, we become the stupid ones because we don't believe anything because we're so superior. You know,
Yeah.
like, oh, these stupid werewolves would never get together and make a plan, or they would never come up with these bullets.
Yeah.
I'm just like, man, like you got what's that called? Holding the idiot ball? Is that the trope or whatever they call that? I'm just like, ah, man. But yeah, that was pretty sweet. It was like and I guess you get into more of this kind of being the second time this has happened once you get into Rise of the Lycans, where he's like, you were like a daughter to me. I can't believe you did this. And I'm like, man, you're kind of going a little bit nuts on this, right? Like she didn't really do anything wrong, but it was more like the bloodlines. They're filthy animals.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was super, I thought that was super cool when he's about to, like, I don't know if he's about to break Michael's neck or something, and she just whoosh, very very early '90s scene there with like the slow mo kind of crouching tiger, hidden dragon.
Yeah, there are a couple of gunfights that are just, they look pretty rough. I mean, it's like, I think we're a little spoiled now with the movies we have, like the action scenes. Because I think actors take those kind of scenes a lot more seriously now, and they'll train, and they'll get like trained up. They'll take time to train the actors. They'll be in shape, and they'll know how to move. Uh, but I mean, sh- wearing that outfit, she's not exactly the most flexible person, and to be in these fight scenes, because that leather doesn't look very, tactical. It wasn't for that reason. So
Are you saying that you shouldn't wear a corset when you're out there gunfighting and sword fighting?
it's probably not the best outfit to be wearing if you're out fighting lichens, but
And this was the, I mean, and they still kind of do this from time to time, but I think they've kind of gotten away from it because they it became a silly thing. But this was still in the time where everybody had a Desert Eagle 50 Magnum, and
yeah,
like, that was the gun. Yeah,
yeah. Chris mentions Beckinsale will always be Yennefer from the Witcher series, that kind of beautiful. And yeah, she would be quite fitting for Yennefer. Yeah, yeah, she would make a good Yennefer. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and no one, I noticed a lot of people, and I think the recent tragedy with the movie Rust, because it happened here in New Mexico with the gun that went off and fortunately killed the, I think it was producer. Not a lot of people in these movies have good trigger discipline. A lot of them have their finger on the trigger all the time, and
Yeah.
that's not good.
Hey, but at least they're not like
Yeah, I guess. But
that's a killer shot right there. No.
yeah, that's but yeah, overall I thought it's a little, it's cheese, but it's like a wink and a nod kind of cheese. It's, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. It was, and they used a lot of the slow mo,
Yeah.
in this. So I think, and again, I felt like it works pretty well. Again, this is not an Oscar movie, but popcorn fun, right? But I think the director and the writer, I think in their head they were just like, all right, we got to make this as cool as possible. What is the coolest thing that you can do in every scene? It's
Slow
backflip,
mo. Yeah.
slow mo, backflip around, shooting as you're coming up over the person. Like, we're gonna cut their head off, but not their whole head. You're gonna see the jaw hanging, and you're just like, that's cool. Like,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, maybe not every scene, but it's
I think yeah, I think it was enough. It was cool. Aaron mentions, yeah, you think well, why do they need guns at first? They are weapons, but then you let it go. Yeah.
well, and this is one thing that did rewatching this, they're not that strong. They're not as strong, as powerful as I had remembered in my mind. I thought they were like super speeders, and like, there was only like one or two scenes, and I think like Michael was the one where he was like in front of the guy, then he was behind the guy. He was that fast. In my mind, coming into the movie, I thought that most of them were that fast. It just seemed like they were like just enhanced humans, kind of.
Yeah.
They weren't like these super beings that we're used to now. When you're like, oh, vampire, well, I'm never going to be able to get anywhere with a vampire. They're so fast. Well, in this movie, they're just, almost super, human-ish.
Yeah, it seemed like, I think in the subway, especially when they're first seen, when there is like when there's no weapons involved, and it's just hand to hand, and it's just mano a mano. The
Yeah.
vampire's kind of, he's dead, because the Lycan's going to overpower him, and they seem a
Yeah.
little fragile. The vampires seem a little fragile.
Yeah. Yeah. And even, I think this is from the first one. You could correct me. This might be from the second one, where the guy has, and I remember this scene sticks in my head. Even before I was coming back, I was waiting for this scene where they're fighting in, like, they're in the subway or below the subway or whatever, and there's all that water, and the guy comes out and he has the silver like whips.
Yeah.
I was like, that is sweet. Terrible weapon, but it looks awesome. But yeah, he hits him. He hits him like 4 or 5 times, and then the Lycan's like, why am I just standing here? And then he goes and just crushes him. Like vampires one-on-one with Lycans outside of Victor, they just get crushed one-on-one. And that's another thing that's like different in like my series, is like, once a vampire is like over like 200, like they could take pretty much any werewolf in a one-on-one open fight. Vampires are more, in my universe, are more powerful than werewolves for the most part.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seemed like they really powered up the werewolves in this to be able to just crush these vampires.
I guess I'd kind of have to, though, too, right? Because there's not that many Lycans left. So if the vampires were too powerful, then it would be kind of
Overmatched.
yeah, they're formidable by themselves. So even in small numbers, they can cause a lot of trouble. So I guess that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of, well, underworld evolution or whatever, but like, yeah, they kind of do evolve over time a little bit, and like, some of like she gets more powerful,
Yeah.
in different aspects. But I really loved the look of Michael when he became the hybrid. I thought that was freaking amazing looking, and whoever does like the makeup and the prosthetics and stuff, I mean, that I thought that was A plus. I thought that held up really well too.
Hmm. With the second movie, I saw that when I saw the second movie, I didn't really know what to expect. I just thought, more dumb fun.
Yeah.
But the intro, like the opening, like the medieval opening they have with Victor and with Marcus and everybody, that was really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right?
that was
They know how
super
to
cool.
open a movie, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The whole I wish we would have had a movie that was based in that time period with that cast, with that group of characters. That would have been really neat. Not just
Yeah.
the 15 minutes opening.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked, and again, I liked that, but this might have just been, a little slip up, or maybe they needed to have all of them to capture him, but I think all the elders were awake in that scene.
Yeah, I think so. They were all there. That must be before they were leapfrogging.
Yeah, because I think that was, what'd she say? That would have been 600 years ago. I think that's when that
Yeah,
was.
it was a while
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, and and I thought that was cool. Where they said that those werewolves can't change back, so they just become like these rage monsters. And I really like that. I thought that was a cool concept where it's like the Lycans have evolved over hundreds and hundreds of years to be able to come back to human. But back then it was just
Mhm.
like, all right, as soon as you get bit, you're basically a rage zombie monster thing, and we have to put you down, or you're just gonna, spread across the country.
Yeah, and William running around just converting little towns and villages, and they were trying to on it. They were kind of like on his trail, trying to stop him. That and he's just like out of control. He's like a wild beast. I thought that was really neat too.
Yeah, yeah, and I like that concept instead of having him be just like his brother, where he's this uber powerful, smart guy. He's the complete opposite. He's like can't control himself, and that makes for a good dynamic because his brother still loves him. He's like, I love you, but we got to do something with you. We got to,
Mm.
and again, these werewolves are like, and that was something that was different too. And I had to look it up to make sure, but yeah, these werewolves are immortal.
Mhm.
Um, which is different. Most of the time, most places don't have werewolves being immortal. They're just, they're either just normal humans that just change throughout their life, or maybe they have extended
Hmm.
lifespan.
And Josh, thank you. I did survive. My lungs are better today. I can talk without coughing. My lungs were upset with me yesterday.
You kill it out there in the desert.
I was trying to. It got really hot. I got sunburned. I didn't expect it. I was dressed for winter, and it turned into spring pretty quick. But yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, it just switched back on us. We've been going for over here in Ohio. We've been going like it'll be like 70, and then the next day it's like 38 degrees, and it's
Yeah,
just like, oh, come on already. Decide what you want to do for a little while.
yeah. It's crazy. It's no good. The So yeah, and I like the second one, and you can tell fairly quickly that they threw a lot of money at them for the second one. Like they said, okay, first one
Yeah,
did pretty well. Here's some money. Here's some money. Go make another one. And I liked how they expanded the lore, and it went a little bit, because the first one's kind of street level, like ground, boots on the ground for the most part, and then the second one is really expands the lore and the history of the vampires.
yeah, yeah. And I think this is the one where we get a lot of why the war is going on, and what exactly Victor did. What was Marcus's. It kind of shows like what the roles kind of
Mhm.
were. Um, one thing I think that, and this was in the first movie, I was disappointed that Amelia just got taken out so easily. I was like, you're like 14, 1500 years old. They showed how strong Victor was, at the point, and you've been awake for 100 years, so you should be fully fed, just like, but yeah, like in the second one, you get to see you know, where the Lycans come from, what their roles were. And I thought that was cool too. I mean, that I think that's a whole that was a whole new concept as well. Like the werewolves were the day, protectors
Hmm.
of the vampires. I'm like, that's that's pretty smart, pretty smart.
Yeah, and I think Victor having that control over Marcus and holding his brother captive, it gave him a lot of advantages, and it kept them from multiplying out of their control. So when they did when they did add new Lycans, they were slaves basically to the vampires, and not more of like a rebellion again.
Yeah, yeah, they were able to yeah, they were able to control the expansion as they needed it.
And Tilly had a question: does anyone know the origin of the vampires versus werewolves thing? It's so baked into urban fantasy that I've never really thought about it, but there are a lot after creatures to pit against each other. Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't
Yeah, we
remember
were
anything
talking
before this one. Yeah.
yeah, we were talking about that probably right before she popped on. But yeah,
Mm.
it's like, yeah, this might have been it. This might have been what started the whole thing. Because I mean, I'd have to do some more research and stuff. But yeah, that's just the thing to do, right? Like if you're just like, if you just randomly went up to someone on the street and you're like, "Who's the enemy of a vampire?" You'd be like werewolves,
Yeah.
and vice versa, But I don't know if that was, I, I don't know if that was a thing, you know.
Yeah. Like you said, I think maybe like the older monster movies, like the werewolf, or the Wolfman versus Dracula, that may have been a thing. But on this level, I'm not sure that this may be the first. I can't think of any. Which, if it is, and kudos to them for doing that. Really
Yeah, I
smart.
mean, that's something cool that you can come back on. Like, hey, yeah, our movie's more of a like a cult classic type of movie, but like we put something into the pop culture that is stuck for 20 years, and just it's just a thing now. But yeah, like I what did you think about Marcus? Did you expect him to be looking like he did? Like I thought he was just gonna be just another vampire like Victor, but he turns out he's like,
A bat.
he is like half Batman. He he's a bat that happens to also be like a man, not Batman.
Uh, Josh, coming from a family that loved Dark Shadows TV show in the '60s, that was popular vampire and werewolf drama at the time. Okay, of the time. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so I'll have to check into that Dark Shadows TV show. Yeah, the Marcus, I loved that the kind of the big bat like this,
Yeah.
but it seems like it would make sense if he's the original, right?
Yeah, yeah, and especially like if werewolves are evolving, right? They were something different. They couldn't control themselves and whatever. Yeah, it makes sense that the original one is a certain way, and then they've kind of you know progressed along. But I loved how they didn't just like they made use of him looking that way. He used his wings to like attack and like stab people multiple times. I'm like, that's cool. That's smart. It's not just they're not just things that just because they look cool. He actually uses them. They're functional.
Yeah, and that whole the sequence when he's chasing them in the truck, I think that was pretty neat when he was flying around the truck and he was trying to get her to stop. Marcus is a great character, and I love Tanis too. His his little compound and his werewolves are protecting him, and his like party 24/7. You know,
I just loved it because they did the quintessential cut when she's like, do you think how do you know where he's at? She goes, because I'm the one that exiled him. And she goes, we're going to be the first ones that have probably seen him in hundreds of years. And then it immediately cuts to him and he's like,
yeah,
like, I was just like,
he's doing like the
oh
YMCA in his house. Yeah,
yeah. I'm like, of course he's partying. Yeah. Like, has all the, vampire ladies hanging out with him. And, uh, but yeah, I mean, and that was pretty cool too. Cause like, he had the werewolves, guarding his place. And of course he drops her in the trap door. Like, you know, and my initial thought was immediately just jump back up. Like
I didn't think of that.
I was just like, because he didn't close the door, you could still see the light coming through. I'm just like, just jump, but it did lead for a pretty cool scene. And this is one thing I was talking with my wife. The werewolves looked really good. The only part of the CGI that was a little off was not the werewolf himself, but as they were running on things,
Oh,
like as they were like pulling, like when they were running on the walls, when they were pulling the drywall down, the wall itself was where it was kind of where the CGI was off. But I mean, you have kind of a limited budget. Something, I'd rather have the werewolf look good than but that's where it shows its age.
yeah. Yeah. That's yeah. I guess you have to kind of pick what's more. But yeah, the drywall coming off the wall that was pretty rough. Oh, I'm glad Aaron brought this up. The soundtrack is really good. I think the first one is really good. Um, I think I forget his name from the only one. I think Maynard and who else had a hand in that? There's a few other musicians from that time period who helped compile the soundtrack. The second one is okay. It wasn't as good, but the second one was pretty good too. Did you listen to the soundtrack?
Yeah, and I actually wanted to ask you about that because I know you're a big audio guy, and and I was like, and I was kind of listening because they would have those big moments when something would happen. They would back it up with, with a big sound, and they had this certain sound that they kept coming back to
Hmm.
anytime that they would. And they actually, I think they even used the same visual where it was like whenever they came back to that castle.
Hmm.
I'm not sure, maybe that was the Rise of the Lycans, where like anytime they would show it coming back to the castle at night, it was the same like sound.
Hmm.
So you kind of, and they kind of use that, and more horror movies will do this. They use the sound, when you heard the sound, you knew a certain type of thing was going to happen, whether they were coming into, getting ready to come into a scary part, I guess you want to say, or an action part. The music would kind of pull you along into it.
Yeah. It would yeah, it would set that up and you kind of knew it was coming. I wonder if that works. If that works or if that's is it better to have that anticipation or is it better to be totally surprised?
Yeah, well, for me, especially in, like, if it was a straight up horror movie, I would rather just nothing.
Yeah.
I'd rather you just throw me in there and just surprise me with whatever's going to happen. And you know, and that's where you get the best jump scares are when you don't have any music backing it. Whereas, and I think they're getting better at this
Yeah.
in the newer generation of movies. Where in the old generation, it was like, the person's walking down the thing. It's like, and you're like, uh-oh, okay, well, something bad's about to happen. You
Yeah.
know, maybe they'll
Kind of.
still get you with the jump scare or not, but now it's more like they kind of know that it's better to not not let you know it's coming.
That telegraph it so much. Yeah, I think I forget his name from Limp Bizkit, the guitarist. Him and Maynard and someone else. There was another musician from that time who they kind of all worked on that, like the Damning Wall,
Oh,
I think was the name of the one of the tracks, the name of the band that they did something together. And like Milo Jojovic is sang a song on the soundtrack too.
oh, really? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, and I was actually, and I don't know if you've watched the fourth one,
Ugh,
but
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I watched the
Yeah.
fourth one, right? I haven't watched the newest. I never watched the newest one, which came out in
Hmm.
like 2016. But I feel like they were going down the same road as Resident Evil, where she just got more like supernaturally, magically, magical abilities. Where you're just like,
Hmm.
I don't think you should have went down this road. Like we didn't need you to do this.
Well, it's interesting you say that because we found out about Celine's family and why they were killed because the family built the cage for William, and it was a secret. At the end, when she takes the powers, and she's like a daywalker now. She can walk. She can
Yeah,
has the
yeah.
other powers. I think they backed themselves into a corner because they made her too powerful.
Yeah, and actually, and I get, and that's why I do think in the fourth one they actually pulled her power level down
Yeah,
in the fourth one. Yeah, because yeah, I love like there was a couple lines that were really kind of like okay, that was just a bad line, but like where Alexander's like, it's like drink, and he's like, what will I become?
yeah,
Something new, or like I don't know, but like, well, I was disappointed. Well, back to where you said they killed her family, and that actually makes sense. That is
yeah,
actually something that would have in this scenario had if this is real. We're living in this world. That's exactly what would have happened.
yeah.
They would have just killed anybody who knew where the tomb, where the cage was.
Mhm.
So when they said that, I was like, makes perfect sense. I get
Yeah.
it. But then you also get that that's gonna set her off, right? Um, but like back to like Alexander, like I
Mm.
was disappointed that we didn't get to see anything from him. He went out so easily. I was just like,
Yeah.
dude, you're supposed to be like the big thing that we've been waiting for. We're all like, oh, we're gonna get to see Alexander Corvinus the first, the most powerful. Does nothing.
Yeah, when I mentioned that they expanded the lore, and I like that, I think they went a little too far because the whole ship thing, and that was a little, it didn't need that, that Alexander thing where he was on the ship and they were searching, and that, I don't know, it seemed like they went a little bit too much. Like they tried to do too many things. That some of it just didn't work.
Yeah, yeah, and and you're thinking to yourself, you're like, is this what he's been doing for the last 1,000 years or whatever? Is he just been going around on a ship so no one can really find him? But and then also, right? All of his men are mortals, right? But somehow they can deal with vampires and they can deal with werewolves when any other human or a
Mhm.
lot of times even vampires can't deal with can't deal with them. But yeah, I was just and they even kind of Marcus, even this becomes a thing for Marcus where
Mhm.
when Marcus finds his father, he even kind of tells him, he's like, you've been sitting around here just letting William rampage. You could have done something. And you're sitting there like, yeah, you are right, Marcus. He could have done something. They didn't explain that away at all. Like the only thing that they gave us was what? Like, he's my son. I didn't want to do. I don't want to kill my son. You don't have to kill him. They didn't kill him. If you're stronger than Victor and Marcus and all these people, you could have done the same thing they did. You probably could have set up something a little bit nicer than a freaking Iron Maiden cage for him. Like,
Could have put him in the hull of the ship, like kept him
yeah,
there and give him a little, I don't know, done something for him. Give him some room to walk around,
yeah.
like a,
I thought
guard.
that that was the biggest like disappointment thing about that was the Alexander thing. I'm just like, man, you could have made him so much cooler and made things make more sense. But like you said, I feel like they gave them more money for the second movie,
Mhm.
but like John Wick 4 is getting ready to come out, right? Each John Wick movie, the first John Wick movie was an hour and 36 minutes. Every single John Wick has got a little bit longer. This new one's going to be almost 3 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 2 hours and 49 minutes. So
Wow.
over an hour longer than the first movie. This movie, the original movie was like 2 hours and 1 minute, and then it dropped by a half an hour.
Hmm.
And you're just like, I feel like you guys aren't trusting in your quality if you're going down in
Hmm.
time. Whereas like John Wick's like, we know we're making good movies. We'll just make them longer because you'll like it. Okay, I like John Wick. Okay, I see the look on your face. Like,
Well, I don't. It's we yeah. John, I like I can appreciate all like the stunts and like the choreography but you could only see someone getting shot in the face so many times. Like, I
well,
mean,
that's why I like the third one, because they gave you more of the background of what's going
yeah,
on, and that's what I'm hoping they're adding. Like another 30 minutes is going to be like story and background and all this stuff. Hopefully,
hopefully, yeah,
but
they're
that's not what
entertaining. Yeah.
John Wick is about. Just a gory fun time, But I was just making that correlation where it's like, well, why are you taking so much time from your movie if if you think the movie's going to be just as good, or if you're wanting it to be just as good, why are you taking it from because there is I don't know, stigma is not the word I'm looking for, but like when you see a movie and you see that it's a 2-hour movie, you kind of expect a level of quality or something,
Mhm.
right? Because you're like, well, they're not going to give us a 2-hour movie that's dog crap, are they? You know,
Yeah, they
you
will.
hope not.
They will.
It was-
Everyone's
uh,
wow.
but yeah, but then like they've brought all the other movies down to your standard hour and a half,
Mhm.
hour and 40 minutes. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, and I really liked how they had Marcus actually pretty much kill Michael. I thought that was cool, but then of course, like again, the one thing they could have done without is I do love the scene where he comes back to life and jumps out of the helicopter, slow motion, cool, right?
Of course, yeah.
Um, but they shouldn't have added the line of dialogue where she's like, your powers might be limitless, and then he opens his eyes. Like it would have been more epic had you not had anything in there where it's just like you could just pan over and make it look like you're leaving him, and then right before you leave his view, his eyes open, and then you're like,
Mhm.
oh, it's on now, but like you knew it was coming when it's like panning right on him and she's talking. You're like, okay, we know what's happening, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a few cheesy moments. Dialogue that just didn't need to be there. Like you said. The yeah, I didn't really think about the time. I didn't realize that it was so much shorter the second one, but yeah, and one thing that bothers me is when a villain or a hero has a chance to kill whoever and they choose not to. Like Marcus could have killed Selene. He could have killed,
Multiple times.
yeah, and he didn't. It's like, why not?
Yeah. Like the first time, like I understand their very first interaction. Maybe she thought he wasn't going to kill her.
Mhm.
Maybe because initially she thought, well, I'm going to make it back and I'm going to wake up Marcus and he'll see my side
Right.
of the thing. And then when the first time she meets him, okay, I get it that it's not like an instant kill. But then after she starts fighting him, I think she starts fighting him because he was going to go after Michael.
Mhm.
And then like he has her pinned, right?
Yeah.
And like because he's like, one way or another, I'm gonna get your blood to like he could have just ripped her throat out right then and there, got the memories, and yeah. But then the movie would have been over, or
Yeah.
then Michael would have had been the main character, and that's not what this is about,
Yeah, I don't think they no nobody wants that. Yeah, but yeah. Overall I thought the second one was okay. I thought it was all right. I felt like it expanded the lore, not always in a good way, but I felt like it was pretty pretty good. It was okay. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
cheese, but you know.
yeah. It wasn't, um, and especially in this time period, it wasn't one of those heavy drop offs
Yeah.
because that happened a lot in the late 90s, early 2000s, where like the second movie, especially if it wasn't a blockbuster, if it was just like, okay, and this is still in the time frame. Um, and this is something we could talk about too. This was still in the time frame where it wasn't all about the theatrical release.
Right.
DVD sales sometimes made just as much money as what you made in theaters. Um, and
Mm.
that's Matt Matt Damon had an interview, and they were talking about like the title of the video was like, this is why Matt Damon says movies suck now. Right, so that's the clickbait, right? But he makes a really good point. He's like, the movies that I was known for, that people were like, oh, this is the Matt Damon movie, he goes, we don't make those movies anymore. He's
Yeah.
like, because you can't hardly make a movie, like all movies now are like 25 million and below and 100 million and above.
Yeah.
Because rarely will you see these mid-tier movies for like 30 million, because those movies, it was like you didn't have to break even in the theaters. It was like, all right, we're rolling out DVDs, and now we're putting out more commercials. Go buy the DVD, and I think that was still in the time frame here, and the quality didn't drop off so much to where it was like, the one, that one should have went straight to DVD.
Yeah.
um, it you
Yeah.
know it didn't drop off that bad. And again, like my wife, her favorite of the movies is Rise of the Lycans, and I will say maybe the quality went up a little bit in Rise. Well, at least the story, the story, and Sheen's acting
Yes.
was amazing. I because I think I've maybe had only seen that movie one time, and maybe I seen it right when it came out. So it was kind of fresh to me when I was watching it. I'm like, and my wife's beside me, and she's like, "It's good, right?" Like, because I'll see there was a scene. I'm like, "That's pretty good." And she was, "Yeah, right."
Yeah, it's you make a good point. I think like the focus, it's a different focus in Rise of the Lycans. It kind of went back to the basics almost. But Michael Sheen, he really goes for it. Like he goes
Yeah,
all out, and
yeah,
you would almost expect an actor of his caliber to kind of like mail it in
yeah,
on a
yeah.
movie
You
like
would
this. He
think, yeah,
does it.
I'm just taking a quick paycheck, be here for 8 weeks, and get out of Dodge with $1 million or whatever.
Yeah,
But he he played it straight. He was not like, he's like, this is a serious movie. I'm gonna be serious about it. And you know, and again, there's some scenes that were wonky because that's just what these movies are. But like anytime he was on screen, he killed it.
yeah, he was going for the Oscar. He was one
He
of
was
your
going. He's like, if a werewolf can win one, it's gonna be me.
it's gonna be me, damn it. Yeah, yeah. But I thought yeah, I think it had that like rebellion underdog. And you know what's coming if you've seen the first two, so you already know what's going to happen to Sonya. But yeah, I thought it was, and there is some overacting in it. I mean, it's an Underworld movie, but
Yeah,
overall, I thought it was pretty solid. It was pretty good.
yeah. And it's weird, and my wife actually caught it again. Another actor that went on to do something, like bigger, that was just a very, very minor character. Um, God, I don't remember his name, but he was just a minor character. Was one of the guys that was helping them escape. He was a Lycan. He was helping them escape, but he ended up being like the general in Spartacus, Blood and Sand, from the Stars show. But this
Hmm.
really reminded me of that. It's kind of like the gladiators, the slaves that are always beaten down, and they rise up and kind of take over. And it's a story kind of as old as time or whatever, right? Yeah, you rise up and overtake your masters. But they do a really good job of making you hate the vampires in this one.
Yeah, yeah,
Like you're like, you deserve everything you get. Like, and again, Victor kind of plays again, this was a prequel, but since you've already seen the first movie, it's kind of the same thing where he's like, my daughter, I can't believe this, and you're like, really? You're gonna kill her for that? Like, it's like she didn't like betray you. She's not like helping them like rise up. She just fell in love with the one guy over here, you know.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that they had so many of the same actors come back.
Yeah,
Um,
the cool thing about this is, and I was like, because this movie came out 6 years after the first movie. It was like '03 was the first movie, and then it was 3 years and 3 years, right? They got the same actress to play his daughter that was in the one flashback scene where you could barely see her, but you're like, that's cool. Like, it's like you call her up, Les calls her up, hey, you remember you did that like 5-minute scene like for me like 6 years ago? You want to like reprise your role on that and have be in like half the movie? you know?
yeah, a lot of the actors too are pretty. You'd think they'd be busy. I wonder if it's a contractual thing.
Yeah, it might be. Well, and that's another thing we were talking. I don't know if we were talking about this before we came on or not, but like there's like, especially in the fourth one, there's a handful of actors that were in Lord of the Rings, in Game of Thrones. So it might be like he kind of works maybe he's a part of that studio, and like you said, maybe it's a contract thing where it's like, hey, this will be one of the movies that we have you in the bag for. Go help Les out here over here, and
Mm.
you know, but the actors are pretty good, and Victor does kind of do that, stage kind of talking,
Yeah.
but it works. I don't know. I don't if it's maybe it's just because you're like, oh, that's what an ancient vampire should talk like. I don't know, but it kind of works for me because he does this thing too. Whenever he kind of gets mad, he kind of bites at the end of his.
Yeah. Yeah.
How dare you? Like,
Yeah. Kind of like, I guess it kind of feels like the whole royalty thing where he was a king or whatever. So I guess
yeah, very
kind of fits.
royal. Yeah,
Royal, but
yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah. Well, and the one thing that bothered me, and it must just be like ingrained in Victor, especially that he just hates everything about them, is when when uh oh my god, what the heck is his name? What's Sheen's actual? What's the
Oh,
character's name?
Lucian.
Lucian. Yeah. When Lucian like runs out and saves his daughter and the men, like, and then he gets beaten to a freaking pulp over it. I'm like, why? What purpose did that serve? Like, he literally saved your daughter, and then you're just like, you hate them so much. You're like, I'd rather everyone got killed than you actually go out there and help. I'm like, that's like out of the, like, my mind just can't comprehend when characters do stuff like that.
Yeah, he's so wrapped up in vampire stuff.
Vampire dominance. Yeah, we can't
Yeah,
even be helped by you guys or whatever.
or the beasts.
Beasts.
Yeah. So did you rewatch Awakening too?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We talked about that. The one thing that I did not like right off the bat is the time jump and
Yeah,
all
the
these
12.
events between.
Yeah, the 12-year time jump. I liked like, it's weird because the one thing that these Underworld movies do, they start off strong. Like so I did like the whole like, oh, humans know about everything now. And like, did you ever watch True Blood?
Most of it, yeah.
Yeah, so I watched all of True Blood. It's like one of my wife's like top 5 shows, and it's campy. It's
Yeah.
very very campy. But this is like, when I was watching, I was like, this is what would happen. This is exactly what would happen. It's like, we're just exterminating. Like, okay, there's vampires are real. Everybody grab your guns. Like,
Yeah.
that's exactly what would happen. So I thought that was really cool. I was like, all right. And like, I didn't remember, like, as we got into the movie, I started remembering more things. But like, this was a movie I'd only watched once, and it was 2012 or whatever. So, it'd been 10 years ago. But yeah, like, as we kind of further got into it, I was just like, oh, and I was hoping that you would kind of remember, either watch it or have remembered it, because the thing that they were using to suppress her and her daughter. Do you remember what it was? The gas?
Don't remember the name of it.
Fentanyl.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
watching that
wow.
today and I was like, well, this didn't age great. Or maybe it did. Maybe they're like, okay, yeah, they knew how bad it was. That
Wow.
yeah, they're like, because they're like, gas him. And they hit the thing, and the of course you got to have the robot voice saying what's happening, and it's
Yeah.
like fentanyl levels at maximum, and you're like, and I was like, fentanyl, whew. Yeah, I'm like, well, everyone like, because that's like you say that word, and that just kind of pops, people's minds are like, oh shit, fentanyl.
Yeah. I didn't even catch that on the rewatch at all.
But
Interesting.
yeah, and they I don't know if they were having like a contract dispute because he never came back for the next movie either. I
Yeah.
don't think,
Mm.
but like they semi recasted him, but really didn't show you his face much. I thought maybe they were hoping he would come back in the next movie, but yeah, that was totally weird. I like even like knowing that he wasn't in the movie. I'm just like, that's obviously not Scott Speed. Like, you're not fooling me, you know.
Yeah. I'm surprised. I had heard that it was a contractual thing, like he wanted more money. That's what I remember, but I don't remember him doing much after that. So may have been a
What did he do? He did he do? Was he in Hawaii Five O? He did a no. He went into Grey's Anatomy.
oh
He did like two. He did a big TV show like was Zoo or something like that. He was in a TV show, and then now he's in Grey's Anatomy.
hmm,
And he was in not the current season, but the last season of You. He was like one of the main characters,
hmm.
which my wife was all excited about that because that's like one of our shows, and she's like, "Ooh, Scott Speedman, he's still looking good." Yeah, like I'm
Yeah,
just like,
he looks the same. Uh yeah. And he was in that horror movie. What was it called? The Strangers or the
Strangers. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That was that the home invasion movie?
Yeah, with the Strangers with I forget her name. With Liv Tyler. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, and then Awakening again. One of the very side characters is the doctor that
Mhm.
she and, and I kind of almost like felt out of character where she like was holding him, which was cool, holding him
Yeah.
against the window as it's cracking. I'm like, all right, that's cool, Um, but then she's like, I'm the one that like what'd she say? I'm the one that had to do with like let you go. I'm the one that let you go. And then she goes, oh, now we're even, and drops him. I'm like, that's kind of bad.
Yeah.
Like, he freed you, right? But he actually was in like 4 seasons of American Horror Story kind of after
Hmm.
this. So it's so weird that like they've got these or like they can catch these people before they get into major roles.
Yeah, pretty good. And Stephen Ray was the doctor, the other doctor. Michael Early was oh no, yeah, in Awakening. Michael Early, the detective.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was in a bunch of stuff. He was big there for I don't know if he's I mean, I don't watch a lot of TV and stuff. I don't know if he's still doing a lot of stuff, but yeah, he was big for that time, I remember.
Mhm. And I think the daughter who played Eve was Kate Beckinsale's and Michael Sheen's daughter, from what I remember. I think that's their daughter.
Oh, like for real?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I did not know
So
that.
I wonder how much
Yeah.
that played into the plot of the movie.
Although although I was kind of looking up some of these people, and I remember looking her up, and I didn't happen to see that, but I seen that like she's 30 years old now, right?
Hmm.
And that was about 10, so she's playing a 12-year-old when she's like 20. She's- I was like, because I was like, that math doesn't. I was like, you're like, and they always have older people, but normally it's like a 20-year-old's playing a 15 or 16-year-old, not a 12-year-old.
Yeah, kind of a stretch. I'm pretty sure that's their daughter, from what I remember. Yeah. and you didn't. That movie didn't do a whole lot with. I kind of felt like it was a wasted opportunity overall to move the franchise
There's no
forward.
yeah, there was no extension to the lore, or they didn't really bring in any outside, influences, outside covens really to spice things up. It was, you know, gotta get Michael back. Then
Mm,
not Michael, gotta save my daughter. And they kind of brought it down. And yeah, and like I said earlier, they kind of depowered her because you
yeah,
expected after evolution, she's a daywalker now. She's got powers from Alexander, so she was going to be able to just beat everybody down. And she like had some trouble like beating some of these werewolves and stuff. And then of course you had the uber werewolf, with
yeah,
but I did like how they spun that to where that whole thing was werewolves. Like that's pretty cool.
yeah.
Like
That was, that
I
was
was like,
cool.
okay, all right, you guys like the werewolves infiltrated, the thing, and now they're trying to, become like immune to silver and all because they kept talking about the vaccine, and you thought they were talking about the vaccine for humans to make them immune to like vampire and werewolf bites, but then it turns out it's a vaccine for the werewolves to be immune to silver, which I thought was pretty cool.
That was
But
pretty cool.
again, that one had some cheesy lines, especially when she kills the Uber werewolf, where
Oh
like
yeah,
he
with the
like
grenade.
puts the grenade, and she's like, he's just like, I heal instantly. I'm counting on it. And you're just like, oh no, you didn't say that. No. The best part was she's been in cryo for 12 years, but they kept her entire outfit right by her cryo tomb. And not only that, each piece of the outfit had its own glass thing. So she broke, there's my boots. Break, there's my corset. Like I was like,
Yeah, convenient, right?
yeah, you got, you never know when you might need it.
Yeah, Hollywood. Yeah,
Like
and
13, 14. Yeah, she may have.
yeah, Bella Ramsey is 19, playing a 13, 14-year-old. She may have a long career. Yeah. Yeah, the what I would have loved to see is if they would have maybe because they already overpowered Selene, maybe they could have wiped out the vampires and had her build up the vampires again. Like she would be kind of like the new queen or whatever, and kind of like
Yeah,
build up the vampire society again. But I'm not sure that would really appeal to the audience they were
yeah.
looking for.
Well, and this, I don't know if this is a hot take, um, but and again, this movie was from 2012. All right, so this movie was before a lot of these movies. Maybe I'm getting jaded. Maybe I'm just getting old. I don't know,
Okay.
but I am not a fan. I'm not a big fan of like kid superhero, even when it's a darker tone. I still don't like it. Like
Mhm.
there's a few, like I like Brightburn. I thought Brightburn was amazing.
Yeah, he's evil
Um,
though. So
yeah, he's evil,
yeah.
but like, have you seen Thor: Love and Thunder?
Mm-mm.
Don't do it.
No, I won't.
Don't wait. That's like 2.5 hours you'll never get back. Um, and then like I liked the Shazam movie. I
Mm.
took my son, son and wife. We went. It's enjoyable for what it was. It was supposed to be goofy, but like towards the end, like he gives his Shazam powers to all his friend, family member type deal, and I'm like, really, is this what we're doing? Like, even my second favorite comic book movie ever, Logan, like the girl, it was good, she's fine, but like my friend was like, whoa, maybe they'll set her up for her own movie. I'm like, please God, no, don't. I don't want to watch a movie with just her, a 13, 14-year-old super Wolverine girl. Like I don't, not interested in that, you know. I don't know if
That's
that's
what
a hot take or not, but
no, I agree. I don't really like it either. And Logan, with the end of Logan, I think that was, you don't want to do more than that. You want to
that's
leave it alone.
perfect.
Yeah.
That was a perfect ending to the X-Men. Man, I'll tell you what, when she took the thing and turned it sideways, I was like, I'm a man. I just got this dusty in here.
Yeah.
Like this movie theater. What's going on?
Yeah. Someone's cutting onions in here somewhere.
But yeah, that was great. I mean, again, like I thought the character was pretty cool here. She was all right. They didn't try to, even though, um, Selene kind of did the same thing again, where she's like, her powers could be limitless. You never really seen that, you
Mm.
know. They kind of kept her in check, so it didn't, she didn't overshadow the movie. Um, but I kind of liked how they let her. And there's another actor, the guy who played the head scientist. He's been in a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
too. Um, but yeah, like where she kind of fights him, her and the other vampire, the vampire cop, kind of, you
Yeah.
know, yeah, the guy shoots him in the face like 3 times with a shotgun or whatever, and the guy keeps coming. Then she ends up ripping his throat out.
Yeah. Eek, isn't he coming? Isn't he coming back in Deadpool? He is, and I'm pretty bummed about it.
Eek.
With Logan, with Hugh Jackman.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm bummed
yeah,
about that.
yeah. So uh, I was totally against it. Like I was like, that's the Logan is the perfect way to end it. But I'm like, if because they were talking about bringing him back for one of the Avengers, they're like, somehow we'll get you in here now that we own it, and they never did, which I was cool. Like, if you were gonna bring him back, like Deadpool would be the way to do it, because it's so meta. Because Ryan Reynolds loves Hugh Jackman, and like they've been playing this thing, but I don't know. It's gonna depend. Like I said, I love Logan, and I thought it was a perfect way to end. So it's I'm hoping Hugh will have because he's an awesome actor. I love anything he does. So hopefully he can kind of keep it from being kind of crapping on Logan. I hope they don't,
I hope so.
because
Yeah.
this takes place before Logan, apparently, right?
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
Yeah. This takes that's what after they did the first trailer thing or whatever, where they were doing the whole I don't you if you remember where they were talking and you couldn't hear anything because they're like, oh, this is what's going to happen, and then like all the sound kind of cut out a little bit, so you couldn't hear anything, and then like people were asking like, but what about Logan? And then I guess like 2 days later they did another one where like Hugh sitting down, he's like, this happens before Logan. Now this was back, because Logan takes place in the near future. It's
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
like 2030 or something like that. So I mean, is it still going to be old man Logan? Are we this far ahead that he's not
Grumpy.
peak Logan or whatever?
That's a great movie. I love that movie. Oh, the girl totally forgot about that movie. Yeah. There's yeah. Did you watch Blood Wars, or you haven't seen
No.
that one, right? Yeah,
Have you seen
don't
that?
bother. Yeah, don't bother.
You're like, that one's really bad. Like,
It's pretty bad.
well, and I assume that it's not super great because they waited 4 years for that one, and so I'm just like, well, if you're pushing it off further, then maybe it's because you're just kind of you wanted like, oh, we'll get one more of these in, and then we haven't seen any since. So obviously, it wasn't big enough for them to make money on.
No, it's pretty bad. It was pretty bad. I had high hopes. I thought maybe, but no, the quality just goes
Did you
fucking
watch
down.
that like recently, or did you watch it initially when it came out?
I watched it initially, like after it was released. But I thought about rewatching it, but it was just too bad. It was
I'm
just not good.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost like I'm pretty sure it went to theaters, right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it did very well.
Yeah, I feel like I almost felt like when I seen that, like when I was looking stuff up, I was like, I was like, oh, I forgot they made one more. I was like, that almost feels like a straight to DVD type, where they're just like start throwing it together.
Let me see what it made. Was it straight to video? I wonder. It grossed 81 million with the $35 million budget.
So they made a
So
couple million because you always
double it for the
whatever. Yeah, it
for
always
the
has to be
advertising.
double.
Mhm.
Yeah, you got to double whatever make the budget. So made a little bit of money, and I think that's kind of what most of these movies were. It was just like, I mean, the first couple made decent profit for the size of the budget, but they weren't like these like, oh, blockbusters. It was kind of like, we made $20 million. Let's make another one. I mean, we're not losing money.
The first one was a $22 million budget, and it made 95 million.
Yeah, so they double more. Yeah,
Pretty good.
yeah, pretty decent profit for that. That's like your modern horror movie type deal where it's like, to keep it about 20 and we'll make 60 to 90 million and we'll be, I think
let's see, the second one made 111 million.
did they up the budget on that pretty good?
Doesn't have the budget on that one. Weird. But yeah, I made quite a bit of money. I would imagine that the budget was higher.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, we're making 25, 30 million a pop. Let's just keep rolling with them until they, kind of start cutting into the budget. But
let me ask you this one. So Underworld Awakening, if you had to guess how much it made worldwide,
no.
What would you guess? Guess the budget and what it made.
Awakening.
I'm surprised seeing these numbers.
Okay. All right. So you're surprised. I'm going to guess you're surprised because it made more money than you thought it was going to make. Okay. So the budget on that. Okay. So we're about 9 years past the original. So things are a little bit more expensive. I'm going to go, they spent 27 million.
Okay. What do they make?
And they've worldwide, and this is why I think they're making more money, because on the original one, it probably didn't make a lot overseas. It was probably almost all here. I'm gonna bet they made 110. No, they made 120 worldwide.
Okay, and Aaron is betting budget 100 million. That's her guess. That's her guess. Is 100 million.
Budget
made 200 million.
No way.
Actually, pretty close. The budget was 70 million
for Awakening.
Yeah, 70 million, and it made worldwide 160.
Wow.
So you figure
they barely.
Yeah, they made 20 million.
20 million 15, bucks. 20. But wow, 70 mil.
I don't see that.
Wow.
I don't see where that money went.
What was the? Did they not have the budget for Rise of the Lycans?
Let me check that. Let's see. The budget for Rise of the Lycans. Budget for that was 35.
Okay, that makes more sense.
And it made 92.
Yeah, so that was probably a good pop for him, but yeah, that makes more sense. $70 million. It doesn't. Awakening, like they didn't do too much in Awakening. I thought, like like you said, where'd the budget on that go?
I don't know where that money went. There is no budget for the second one for some reason. I'm surprised it only made 111 for the second one. I'm surprised Awakening made more.
I'm international. It has to be like it got over time. It built up a fan base overseas, like DVDs and stuff, and then.
Yeah, actually, you're right. Domestic for Awakening was 62. International was 97.
Yeah. Once you start opening those international markets is where these movies really get a lot of their movies. And this does seem like a movie that would be bigger internationally.
And plus, you figure they don't get all the profits from international sales either. So.
Yeah, well, and that's what a lot of people don't realize, is, and Yeah, movie flopped and it made billions. Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
just like um Thor Love and Thunder, it cost them $250 million to make. Yeah, and it's still, you know, I think it made like 700, but for them that's considered a flop,
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's like when I was doing like research, and now I used to go into the theaters, right? And you would be like, maybe I I have never done this, but some people would sneak their own candy into the theaters.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's crazy. No one never
yeah.
does that.
No one would do that, right?
Yeah.
But like as I've gotten older, I realized like I don't mind paying that amount for the popcorn and stuff. I understand like when I go in and we all get food and popcorn and drinks and it costs $30. I'm like, I get it because the theater's only getting half of that money. They're only getting half of my ticket dollar.
Mhm.
Sometimes, actually, on the first week, most of those big budgets, like Spider-Man, the actual company gets like 65% of the first
Yeah.
week.
Mhm.
So especially if you're going in the first week, like don't feel like you shouldn't feel bad that you're having to pay a lot for the food because that's what helps the theater actually run. The theater doesn't start make like the theaters make out really well when movies have legs where like
Yeah.
third week, fourth week, you're still making money. Like theaters loved Top Gun Maverick, I bet. Like because
Yeah.
they were there, in the fourth and fifth week, they're getting 60% of the tickets, and that movie's still, killing it, but yeah, so I don't feel bad now. Yeah. With that tough
Yeah.
market.
They make very little on ticket sales. It's all concessions. Yeah. Anyway, so that's why those first weekend numbers are obsessed over.
Yeah, yeah. And like Ant-Man, I guess Ant-Man's for what they paid for it and everything, it's kind of tanking,
Mhm.
and I haven't seen it. And again, maybe another hot take, but after Endgame, like we've went and seen a few of the Marvel movies, but it used to be like we gotta go opening weekend. Like what's the stinger? What's the tie-in? Like, and now it's just like I still haven't seen Shang-Chi, haven't seen Black Widow.
Mm.
There's at least one more that I haven't seen. I haven't watched a lot of the ones on Disney Plus. We watched Loki and then Moon Knight. Moon
Mm.
Knight was awesome.
Hmm.
But like Marvel is really just kind of I don't really care much anymore. Unless they're going to bring in a character that I really like. Like if they get to the Fantastic Four, I'll probably be interested in that. But yeah, I mean it's been tough for Marvel, but you know I don't know. I don't want to say it's kind of their fault. I don't know if they don't know what to do, but
I I think part of it is they don't want to pay the actors too much because like they don't want to keep bringing them back. They'll have to pay them more and more and more because they're making
yeah.
a ton of. They were like printing money for a while.
Well, and that's been their strategy, and their strategy was always because if you can find the salaries online, it's like the first movie you get paid dog crap. Like I think what Chris Evans made like 500,000 for the first Captain America movie,
Wow.
and but then like they're like, all right, we're gonna make you famous and then we'll pay you in the second and then the third.
Mm.
Like because they made a big deal about Brie Larson made like 5 million for the first Captain Marvel, and that was the most anyone had ever made on their first superhero movie. And you're like, yeah, it's like, yeah, they basically give you the crap deal so that they can make tons of money because the last movie, I think they had to pay Robert Downey Jr. $50 million for Endgame or something like that. So they're like, yeah, you're right. Like they're trying to find unknown people or you know trying any way they can to kind of keep that budget down. But
I think they value the franchise more than the actors. They know that they have the people care about the characters, not so much the actors. At least that's their view on it. They see them as the actors are replaceable. We have the IPs for the characters, so we can do whatever we want.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the worst thing, like Thor: Love and Thunder, I could just rag on that movie forever, but it's like the best part about that movie was Christian Bale's character. Like every scene he was in, you were invested in it. You're like, man, he is overshining everybody in here. But then because he's a dark character. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm sure
Yeah.
you're familiar with gore. Um, like they're really into it, and then you go from that dark scene, and then all of a sudden like Thor's farting or something in the next scene, and you're just like, bro, can you just not do that? Like, can we stay in that in that lane? They couldn't decide whether they wanted it to be a comedy or a dark fantasy. Like, it would have been a great movie if they just stayed with that aesthetic the whole way, but
Mhm.
they were just, and then the whole kid thing at the end, and just I hate kids.
Josh commented, "Werewolf by Night is the best thing Marvel has put out recently. Moon Knight was good as well. Ethan Hawke was a cult leader. I'm sure you would like that." Yeah.
Anything Ethan Hawke, yeah, yeah. Moon Knight. I have watched Moon Knight. Moon Knight was awesome. Yeah, I do want to watch Werewolf by Night, but yeah, anything Ethan Hawke does, uh, yeah, the
Yeah.
Black Phone. Ooh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Eh,
You were
it
iffy
was
on
all right.
that.
It was
Yeah,
okay. It was
yeah.
all right. It wasn't bad. It was
I liked it, but yeah, I like anything Ethan Hawke does.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I'm a sucker for Ethan Hawke. Yeah. But Moon Knight, I don't know. Maybe one of these days I'll watch it. But
yeah, good. Yeah, Guardians 3. Yeah, gotta watch that. Yeah,
that seems like that's I mean, that whole the James Gunn stuff. I tried watching Peacemaker, and that
I
humor just
never was it
I
bad.
mean, it's okay, but it's just too much. Like
It's too much James
it's
Gunn.
too much James Gunn. Like no one's there to like rein him back. It's like
Yeah, that's
it's
exactly
just
what happened with
too
Thor: Love
much.
and Thunder. Too much
Yeah.
Taika Waititi. You're like,
Yeah.
he does what he does, but he just did it the whole time. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're just like, yeah. I haven't watched Peacemaker yet, but I actually liked. I mean, I might be in the minority that liked the original Suicide Squad.
I
You
liked
know,
it. Yeah.
yeah, okay, good.
It was
I
dumb fun. Yeah.
It was dumb fun, right? Yeah, Captain. And then they you watched the new one, right?
Yeah. I thought
The
that
James
was
Gunn.
funny too.
They
Yeah.
just kill back Captain Boomerang at the beginning. I'm like, come on! If you're gonna bring him back, you might as well have brought like he was like the best character.
Yeah.
I just like he's pulling out the teddy bear and he's like his beer inside the teddy bear and stuff. I'm just like, that's awesome. That's good stuff.
Yeah. I hope you see the Air cut one of these days.
The what?
The Air cut, the David Ayer cut. There's
Oh,
a campaign for it for the original cut because they did a bunch of reshoots and they changed it.
oh,
The
okay.
original Suicide Squad. So maybe we'll see that some. Well, maybe I don't know.
What'd
Hopefully,
you What'd you think about the Snyder cut?
I loved it.
Oh, God, so good.
So good. Yeah,
So
so good.
good. I was one of those people that was just like I liked most of what Snyder did. Like I
Mhm.
wasn't like, I mean, I know a lot of people were like, you had Superman kill someone? And I'm like, bro, he was trying to cut like the whole skyscraper down and would have killed thousands of people. Like, yeah, I mean thousands of people did die, but Superman was trying. He was,
Yeah,
he was new Superman. He wasn't that, but yes, the Snyder cut was just God, like 4 hours, like that I will probably go and rewatch at some point. Like I loved it.
yeah. I on the day that it was released, I planted myself in front of the. I was that was like Snyder Cut day.
Yep.
I just had to
Yeah.
watch it.
Yeah. I watched the whole thing. I wasn't like they break it into like they broke it into like three episodes.
Yeah, like four
I was
sections
like,
or
no, we're going, full force. Like, and if it's something that I like, I will sit. I don't care how long it is. Like, um, oh my gosh, have you ever watched Alexander? Uh,
I haven't. I haven't.
uh,
With
the
forget his
Colin
name.
Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good actor and actresses in that, but the director's cut of that is 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Mm.
and I loved it. Like if it's a good movie, Oliver Stone doesn't make a bad movie though in my mind. Like
Did you like U-Turn? I loved U-Turn.
actually, no,
You haven't seen U-Turn?
I
Oh,
haven't seen U-Turn. Like
that's like
JFK, Any Given Sunday, like uh yeah, just I think he's one of the best, but he
yeah.
doesn't do a lot of movies. Like he kind of he's almost James Cameron like where he's like I'll wait 5-10 years and then I'll put something out.
Well, I should say I remember really liking U-Turn, but that was like 20 years ago, so I don't
What
know
was
if it
the
holds up.
premise of that one?
It's like the worst day you can think of. think think like Sean Penn and Jennifer Lopez is in it. But it's a like a contained story, but it's like anything you can think of for this guy like to go wrong goes wrong for him. But it's like one thing after another.
Oh my god! Well, like Any Given Sunday, to me, that is my favorite sports movie ever. I just love because like it makes you feel like that's probably what it's like in the locker rooms and like when they're out partying, like the kind of way that they live. Like they're shooting up steroids and they're fighting each other and like like
Yeah. Aaron, did anyone watch The Good Lord Bird with Ethan Hawke? Was pretty wild, but hey, it was about John Brown. It's on my list. Actually, it's on my
no, I
list to
haven't.
watch. I think it's like a series, right? If I remember right, it's like on Showtime. I think that was the one. I
Good Lord,
have it
Bird.
saved here somewhere, but yeah, that's on my list of things to watch with
Yeah,
Ethan Hawke.
I'm gonna have to stick that on there, man. Because
Snyder Cut has longevity for sure. Have you seen Sucker Punch?
yeah, yeah. Um, and then what he had another. What was the one? It was Henry Cavill's breakout movie. Um,
Oh, The Man from Uncle.
no, 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 no.
No, that
It
was
was like he was playing some like he was Perseus. I think he played Perseus,
I forget. Yeah, I
and
forget.
it looked exactly like 300. Like they must have shot it in the same place and everything, but it was really good.
Hmm.
Like, and it kind of had that sucker like all the aesthetics and everything was pretty similar. I heard that that's kind of how they're going to shoot Bioshock, or they were going to shoot Bioshock. Now Netflix has it, so I don't.
Oh,
I'm one of those guys where I like. To me, Bioshock was the best story ever. Like the first Bioshock, the best story in a video game ever. Like I just love the writing in it. Like, come
it
on,
was a good
would you
one.
kindly? Like,
Yeah,
oh man,
that was cool.
So I'm just hoping that Netflix doesn't butcher that because I'm gonna be. I've been pretty cool with all these adaptations, like even Halo, which they've missed with it a lot, but I still say that if you haven't played the games, you would enjoy Halo. Like that's really good. It's just they've kind of pulled away from most of the lore, but they didn't destroy it so bad that if the second season they could just do the first game in the second season
Mm.
if they wanted to. But like BioShock, I will be that irate person online that is like, you pieces of trash, you're ruining my childhood. Like that, I probably will be that way if it's bad.
Sucker Punch feels pretty culty, but it was cool. Yeah, it is. I think, yeah, I think there was some choices made that were weird, but there's lots of layers to it, to that one.
Yeah.
That's pretty sad story. Preach JR Bioshock rules.
Yeah.
The thing about Netflix is that it cancels everything right away. It doesn't. I mean, they don't mess around. They'll axe anything.
I was super excited. I don't know, maybe I even messaged, I don't know if I messaged you or not, but I was going to tell you to watch this show, and I was going to tell everybody to watch this show. It's called Archive 81. I don't know if you've
Oh
heard of
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's like a found footage thing, right?
Kind of
Yeah.
half and half. Yeah, kind of a hybrid thing. Did you see it or just heard about it? Man, I was so excited. Like me and my wife are watching this show. We can't get enough. We're like, this is amazing. This is such an inventive show. And my wife was like, started looking up stuff about it. And she's like,
canceled.
oh yeah, it hit #1 on Netflix when it first came out in 2022. And she's like, we're literally about to watch the last episode. And I'm like, man, I'm so freaking pumped about this. And she's like, they canceled it. I'm like, what? Why? Why? And then we watched the last episode and it was great. And it leaves you right on the cliffhanger. Like it was kind of like the Underworld. Like they thought they were going to get a second season. And I'm like, Netflix, you idiots. Like, and she said it hit #1. Like what?
Yeah.
Like
There
what
was
did you?
that Mark Millar franchise. What was I forget the name of it. There was like a superhero one that was #1, right? It was like #1 for like 2 weeks. And on the second weekend they canceled it. And it was still #1.
That's same feels for 18. I've heard 1899 was so good, but I haven't.
I'll
I
probably watch it just
I
because the
haven't.
creators of Dark did it, but
Yeah, I haven't made. I'm still going through Dark. My wife gave up on Dark. She
oh
was just
no.
yeah. She was like, it's so slow. Like
It speeds up.
she gave up. Um, like halfway through the first episode of season 2. I'm on season. I kept going. I'm on #3 now. I'm on episode 3 of, so I'll be on episode 4. So again, I don't know if my wife's watching this, but she kind of dictates what we get to watch. So I have to sneak in episodes. So I'm still there. I do agree with her that it is very slow, but again, it's one of those concepts, and I'm wanting to see it pay off. So you're starting to get it. Like the tunnels, I am just after they got to the tunnels where they can where they crawl and then they end up in the past. And I won't spoil anything for anybody, but I want to see what happens.
It's
I'm
so cool. It's so cool.
like,
It
I
pays off.
want to see it pay off. And then there's a show. I guess they're starting to shoot the second season. It's called From. And it is a concept dream. And if they cancel it, I'm gonna riot. But I think they're making the second season. It's basically about you start off with these people that are driving, a family, and they drive through this little town, and then it does the whole oh crap, we're looping back around into this town. What? And she's all mad. The wife's all mad, of course. Why you missed the turn? Why are we back here? He's like, I didn't miss the turn. I haven't moved. I haven't, whatever. And they can't get out. They can't. They can't. They're stuck in this loop. And then people are watching them. And then it cuts to the people, and they're all like, "Should we stop them?" And you're like, "What?" And and then it's like, they try to stop them and they're like, hey, you can't be out here at night. You need to get in here with us before night. And if you're just some random people, you're like, why are you talking to me this way? Like, get away from us, and that's kind of how it goes. And then it gets into portal, time travel, horror, monster creatures. And I'm just like, yeah, I mean, I think you'll love it because you like the kind of it seems like you like time travel and the stuff like that.
I'm into all that weird stuff. Aaron, it's still worth a watch. Totally going to check out Archive 81. Going to embark on 12 Monkeys first.
Is that that's the series remake of it? Yeah, I remember watching the original. That's Michael Crichton, right? Is that Michael Crichton's book?
No, I don't remember who wrote 12 Monkeys.
Yeah, Archive 81, I mean, it's still relatively new. It came out in 2022, so they could come to their senses, and it's not like it's something that's been gone for 4 years or something. So, but it's so freaking good. I was like, it's so much better than 90% of the shows they're making right now. Like, why would you cancel it? And then Netflix hasn't brought back Black Mirror in 2.5 years. And when they brought it back the last season, it was half of the normal season. Most of them were eight episodes. They only had 3 or 4 episodes in the last one.
For shame,
Fringe.
still haven't watched Fringe. Fringe is good.
I
It gets pretty science fiction-y at the end.
Fringe is a weird thing. It's one of those shows where every time I watched it, I liked it, but I never like, it was the same way with Supernatural for the longest time. Supernatural was always one of those things. Like I watched Smallville, I was hardcore into Smallville, and then like Supernatural came in like season 4 of Smallville, and it was like right afterwards because it was a little bit darker, a little bit
Mm.
bloodier, so they came on afterwards. And anytime I watched Supernatural, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. But like, I never got onto it until like, I don't know, they were in like season 6 by the time I was like, oh, okay. But like, it was hard to catch up because it was like 22 back in those days. It was 22 episodes.
Yeah,
You know,
long seasons, lots of hours. Oh, the time just flies, doesn't it? Yeah,
yeah, I was like, oh man.
yeah, I
But
didn't even but thanks for coming by and chatting Underworld and a bunch of other stuff with me.
everything else, yeah. Like
Yeah,
anytime if you need someone to take up space and blow through 2 hours without even thinking about it.
I know you blink and it's over. Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh man, dude.
Yeah.
Just totally
But
not
no,
there.
thanks for coming by on episode 1 of Cinephile
Episode
Saturdays.
1.
Episode 1.
Will always be in the history books.
Yes, always. For anyone looking to connect with you, where's the best place to find you?
Well, I used to say Twitter and stuff, and it's not that I am against Twitter, but it takes so much energy.
Hmm.
So the best part, just type in JR Carroll here in YouTube, and you'll find my channel, and you can my email's on there. If you want to email me, if you want to talk to me, you can hit me in the comments. I pretty much answer every comment that comes in the videos. So yeah, that's probably the best way to find me.
Yeah, Twitter has been weird lately. Lots of energy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
too much to keep up with.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot to keep up with. It's exhausting. But yeah, well, thanks everyone for coming by in the chat, for talking Underworld, and it was a good time. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thanks everyone who's watching, and Aaron and Chris for staying all the way through, man.
Yeah, soldiers. Yeah. So
uh,
thanks everyone, and watch out for those Lycans. Keep your nightlights on.
Death dealers forever.
Yeah. Thanks everybody. Have a good weekend.